right, guys. I have my friend Eric Rosen here, and he's visiting in town from Boca. And Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what brings you to Atlanta?
Great. Well, thanks for having me. It's always good to be with you. My background is I was a Wall Street guy for a long time. I started my career in Chicago at a firm called Continental Bank after college, and I actually got my first watch in 1994. I bought a Rolex, a very plain Rolex date for $960 in 1994, and kind of became hooked on watches at that time. We'll go back to that later. But I moved to New York. I worked at Chase, and I ran the global credit trading business and different businesses at different points in time. Spent most of my career there, and then I ended up moving to UBS. I ran fixed income at UBS, and then I started a hedge fund called Reef Road Capital. Reef Road Capital was a credit opportunities fund that I ran for about 8 years. And then I moved to Florida. And I write a newsletter now called the Rosen Report, which is read in 50 states and 107 countries. And I read it a couple times a week.
Yeah, it's a very, very popular newsletter, especially with the Wall Street crowd. He has an extremely dedicated following. And as you know, we have the largest amount of luxury watches in one room and probably anywhere in the world. We have about 2,500 watches here right now. At our peak, we had over 3,000 watches. Having said that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your watch collecting journey?
You know, I grew up with very limited means, and when I got my first Rolex, I thought I arrived. I was checking my phone, my watch, like every 30 seconds. Do you want to know what time it is? Do you want to know what time it is? It's you know. So it was very addictive when I got this stainless steel watch with an oyster band. Sadly, it was stolen. Somebody who worked for us stole 7 or 8 of my watches, and that was the one that meant the most to me, but he stole some really good stuff, Daytonas and presidentials too, that we never recovered. But I started buying watches, and I was living in Chicago, and there was a big watch dealer at the time there named Howard Frum, who recently passed, and I'd go over at lunch a couple times a week and look at what he had, and it was a very chaotic scene there, and a lot of the professional athletes in Chicago in the early 90s were there, from the Bulls and the Bears and the Cubs, and it was always a lot of fun. And I just started getting watches, and at one point I had quite a few, and I don't really wear my watches that much anymore, so I'm down to a half a dozen watches, 7, 8 watches now, because I don't wear them as much as I used to.
Well, 7, 8 watches is still a great collection, but at your peak, you said you had a very large collection. How many pieces?
I probably had 75 different watches at one point, but not all of them are really important watches. I inherited a watch that wasn't worth a lot of money, an old Omega Seamaster from the 50s from my grandfather, and it got me to collect Omega Seamasters. And I started buying Omega Seamasters. They weren't prohibitively expensive, but I just thought it was cool to have watches that augmented what my grandfather wore. And so I had some of those, and then I had Rolexes and Patek, and I had a bunch of different watches at different points.
Very, very cool. I mean, that's an impressive watch collecting journey. I know it doesn't have the fairy tale ending.
Yeah, sadly, it doesn't.
Maybe you'll be restarting that collection to go even further.
Well, you have plenty of inventory for me to pick from. I'm a little overwhelmed, I'm not going to lie.
We've got plenty. But why do you think it is that the Wall Street crowd is so into luxury watches and luxury watch collecting?
It's interesting. I think when I started my career, everyone had to wear a suit and a tie. That was your thing. And you could differentiate and augment your outfit with a fancy tie and fancy shoes, and there's a little bit more to do. Whereas women, they could use a different purse every day, and they have a lot more outfits, and they have jewelry to augment it. Now, I think as we've taken away the suit out of it, how can you really dress yourself up and differentiate yourself? And it's with watches, and it's gotten out of control. I mean, all the guys who make real money on Wall Street have watch game. It's rare to find somebody without a watch game, and some of them are like crazy. I didn't even realize. I meet these guys who have 50 watches, and some of them are hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they take it really seriously. And I think having a watch gives you a way to differentiate yourself. And I bought my son a watch. He was valedictorian for his high school, and he was off to college, and I got him a Submariner. He's in love with it now. He's more into watches than me. He gave me 50 questions to ask you guys, so he's really into watches now.
Yeah, when I spent 10 years on Wall Street before getting into this fund business, and I just remember it being such a way for financial professionals to mark milestones in their career. remember a lot of people I knew when they, got promoted from analyst to associate, they went out and bought a Submariner.
Yeah.
That was the common watch to celebrate. I had investment banker friends, they would close a big deal or, have a record year, they would go out and buy themselves a watch to commemorate that occasion. Somebody made MD or partner, they would go out to buy a watch. So, Wall Street is all about milestones and hitting that next milestone. And watches was one way throughout that journey to recognize those milestones and then be able to look back at them later in life. They go hand in hand. And also Wall Street is all about assets and value. And there's probably no consumer product in the world that holds its value the way luxury watches do. Some of them appreciate very well. They don't all appreciate, but they all hold their value quite well, at least all the ones that we sell. And with that in mind, we're gonna have Jason, one of our superstar sales team members, show you some very unique watches that we have in right now.
Great, I'm really excited to see them.
Yeah, we'll start with this first one here, one of my favorite dress watches. Obviously, if you're gonna talk about a dress watch, you have to talk about Patek Philippe. So we have this 5170R. I want you to just take a look at that.
Wow.
I mean, just a classic clean watch. I love anything that has those brigade numerals on it. I think it just pairs so nicely with that black dial.
Stunning.
And the pop of white on the subdials and the inner track just really is super attractive on this model.
It's beautiful. What does a watch like this go for? What year is it?
So don't know the years on these watches, but it's a manual winding movement. It's probably gonna be somewhere around like the 40 to 50,000 range, but just a very classic, elegant watch. I love with Patek that they don't do so many like scriptures on their dial itself. So it's just a very clean and simple, elegant look.
It looks brand new. It looks like it's never been worn.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's unique about our business, as you saw, we have a 13-person watchmaking department. So we take 5 or 50-year-old watches and we get them as close to as new condition as possible, unless it's a vintage watch that we don't want to touch. But when you look around at our inventory of 2,500 watches, they all look like they just left the factory. Patek Philippe, you go to a Patek Philippe store, they're gonna give you an interview and then dance around and put you on a wait list. We have 160 Patek Philippe watches in inventory right now. And what's interesting, like that watch right there is actually selling for 25 to 30% less than the retail price. So Patek Philippe will make you jump through hoops, beg them, give you the runaround, and you could actually get it here for 30% less than they would sell it to you if you're lucky enough to have them sell it to you. So, for people to like value, the value's here.
Yep.
When you look at these watches today, I know, and we'll talk about sport watches, stainless steel is hot. Is it rose gold, white gold, platinum? Like what's the most in demand color for the hot stuff, for the more classic dress watches today?
That's a great question. I feel like with white gold or platinum, it's more of those kind of sleeper luxury metals, where a lot of people will just think that you have a stainless steel watch versus having a precious metal. But for someone that does want that little bit of a flashier appearance, do you think rose gold has become a lot more popular probably in recent years?
I think this is stunning.
Yeah, and to me, it's a little bit more subtle than yellow gold, so it's not quite as flashy. But for me, I'm always a classic guy. I love yellow gold. I feel like it's just a timeless look. But right now, I do feel like the rose gold models have been really selling successfully for us.
Great.
What's really interesting with, gold and platinum prices almost at record highs. They've gone up so much in the last 2 years. A lot of financial professionals are reaching out, looking for value by buying a gold watch or a platinum watch that has not increased in price as much as it should have given the commodity price rally. I mean, platinum's up over 100%, gold's up, I think, 70 to 80% in the last 2 years. But the prices of the watches often have only gone up 10 or 20%.
All right, the next one we got here, obviously it's the most popular one for the Patek Philippe line. We have the Aquanaut, and this one's gonna be kind of a 40 millimeter case size. So a great size for pretty much any wrist size at all. So even if you have a smaller or bigger wrist, this tends to wear very nicely. And to me, it's a perfect summer watch that you can still dress up really nicely, especially with that tropical strap on there. But just a clean, classic look, so thin even for a sports watch. But what are your thoughts on these models?
Yeah, I think versatility, as I said, when I used to wear a suit every day, I'd be wearing a watch like this, mine like this, and I bought a Frank Mueller, which at the time was really hot, which I've learned not all watch investments work. My Frank Mueller is worth less than when I paid for it, but it was very hot at the time. And those are the kind of watches I wore when I was wearing a suit. This, you could wear jeans and a t-shirt and it still looks good. So I think because the world has really moved away from formality, how many Every banker wore a suit and tie. I had to wear a suit and tie at my desk. And, at my first firm, Continental Bank, back in the day, if you left your desk to go to the bathroom, you had to put a blazer on. It was so formal. And now everybody's in business casual with some form of a khaki, some form of a sneaker. It's that could be overkill. Whereas, the watches like this and the Rolex and more sports models, I think are a little bit more versatile. You're going to get a little more wear out of it. So I think it's great.
Yeah,
great.
Very classic.
Is this
watch.
A brand new band? It looks brand new. There's a whole thing. This stuff is so looks.
Probably not.
Paul, I couldn't.
Probably not brand new.
I could tell you now that I would never know that these are not brand new watches. They all look out of the box.
Yeah, none of our watches are brand new. They're all pre-owned. Some of them are unworn, but all the ones you're looking at have been worn before. It's just we have the expertise that nobody in the world has to get them to look and run like they're brand new before we sell them.
Yeah, so it's great. Beautiful watch. And you said how much is this one?
73, I think we're selling it for, right, Jason? Yep. Yeah, 73,000 right now.
Beautiful. Now, I did a tour of the facility, and they have almost 40 employees. They have a huge sales staff. They have a watch repair staff. They have a photography staff. They have an editing staff. I mean, I am blown away by this operation. This is a no-joke operation, buying 50, 60 watches a week.
50, 60 watches a day.
A day.
Yeah.
I apologize. My
Yes,
day. 56 watches
yes,
a day, and selling hundreds of watches a week. It's a big operation. So it's amazing. A lot of beautiful inventory here.
All right, and next one, we're gonna look at this one here in the pretty blue box that everyone is probably aware of. It's a Tiffany & Co. branded box.
Uh-oh.
And on the inside, we have a Patek Philippe here, which is very, very special here. I'm gonna move this box aside for just a second here.
The box is stunning.
It is. That's the one thing I really love about Patek Philippe.
It's it looks like,
yeah, it's a very clean presentation here. And then of course we have the classic Nautilus in here, but it's not just a traditional Nautilus. It's actually a Tiffany & Co. branded Nautilus. And if you take a really close look at the bottom of the dial there, you have your Tiffany & Co. branded logo right there.
So that's a real collectible piece that, we're selling this for around 200,000, a little under that, I believe, but this is something that could end up going for millions one day at auction.
How many were made of this?
So the 5712, the non-Tiffany, they made around 7,000 to 9,000, and that was considered rare because it was a 19-year run.
Yeah.
And that's globally. This watch globally over 19 years, they only made between 50 and 100 pieces.
Wow.
So it's extremely rare.
Put that in perspective. Do we know how many watches Rolex makes in a year?
1.1 million.
Yeah, 1.1 million. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was a big number. I didn't know if it was that big.
It's a very big number.
Wow, this is stunning. The only thing I'd like better if it had this color face.
I know, right? Yeah. I wish they would kind of go in all the way on the Tiffany color on it.
Put a little that color somewhere in there, but it's beautiful.
That's definitely one piece. While nobody could predict what it might do, it's the one that probably has the most shot of going up in value by 4 or 5 times over the next 10 years because they made so few of them. The 5712 model got discontinued last year after a 19-year run, so there's very few of these ever hit the market.
Yep. Talk about discontinued, with Rolex. Talk about the Pepsi and what you're seeing with prices, because I think they're no longer making it now, or
they just announced it, I guess a month ago,
Yep.
officially, but the rumors were already floating for a month before that, and we had about 6 or 7 of them in stock. We blew out of them instantly, and over the past 2 months, the price has jumped by about $5,000-$6,000. We're selling them now around 30. Last year, this time, we're probably selling them at 22.
Yep.
Wow.
And I've also seen that it's kind of gained a lot of popularity just for the GMT-Master 2 model alone, just because they didn't introduce a new one to replace the Pepsi this year, which I'm hoping next year they'll add in the Coke bezel, which they've been rumoring for very many years. But we've been starting to get a lot of calls, not only for the Pepsi, but for like the Bruce Waynes, the Batmans, Batgirls. And I don't know, we'll see where the market goes on some of those.
I'll tell you, I was in Paris and London over the holidays in December with my family, and I was taking my son to look at watches, and if you say those words to them, they get they don't want to know about the Bruce Wayne and the Pepsi. Like, that's not what we call it. It was very funny. Yeah. They were upset when, like, do you have any Hulks? Do you have any Sprites? They're like, we don't call it that. It was a very funny exchange. And the other thing I learned is I couldn't buy a watch. Everything was on weight. So if you're into watches, using the secondary market to get them is really the most efficient way to get a watch, because if you want to wait 3 years or 2 years, you can get something new, but most people have to wait, which is frustrating.
We had a couple recently that went to Switzerland to buy themselves watches for their 30th anniversary, they were able to buy her a Cartier there, and they couldn't find a Rolex, and they were finally asked by one of the shop owners where they live, and they said Atlanta, Georgia. And the shop owner in Switzerland said, well, why don't you just go to SwissWatchExpo? So they came in here and they said, well, we went to Switzerland, and they sent us back to Atlanta and saying, you have the watch, so why don't we just come here? So the moral of the story is you don't have to go to London or Switzerland.
You save your money on airfare.
Yeah, Atlanta's the busiest airport in the country. And we ship all over the world daily, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, we went to a dozen watch stores between Paris and London, and we walked away with 0 options to buy a watch. I thought I was on a Saturday Night Live skit. I thought it was a joke. I thought someone was playing a joke on me. You couldn't get everything. Oh, that watch is an 18-month wait. That watch is a 36-month wait. You couldn't get anything.
So we have about 1,000 Rolex watches right now in inventory. So pretty much any Rolex you could think of, we have.
And you said about 50% of your sales are in Rolex?
Correct, yep.
Great. What's next?
So the next one here, we've got Audemars Piguet.
I'm a big AP fan. I
It's
love
definitely one of the holy trinity of watchmaking here. So this is the chronograph version of the Royal Oak.
You better have
clean size.
it better be strong. This has got some heft to it.
It's a stainless steel, so it's very sturdy.
Yeah, it's sturdy. I mean, it's heavy. You know, your left arm is going to be bigger than your right if you wear this for any period of time. You can do curls with it.
But the cool thing about this watch here is even though it's a 41mm case size with the chronograph functions, it's only about 11mm thick.
Yeah,
so it's
thin.
actually very thin for a chronograph watch, even though it does have that little bit of added weight to it.
Beautiful. I mean, yeah, this is the kind of watch that, to me, it can go both ways in the sense you can wear it with a suit, you can wear it with jeans, and so this is the kind of stuff that is
very versatile.
That a lot of my friends really want because they want to go out to dinner and be able to wear it, and go to a ball game and wear it, which is, versus some of the more formal and traditional ones, it's a little awkward to wear jeans and a t-shirt with it.
Definitely.
And I just love how AP makes a bracelet on these watches. It's stunning.
Very nice. I love AP watches. I mean, they're fantastic.
All right, the next one is one of my favorite Rolex watches just in general because of the dial alone.
I love it.
Obviously the Daytona line has just such a big notoriety in their models, but this is the meteorite dial in 18 karat rose gold with an oyster flex strap on it.
It is fantastic. My favorite watch of this is beautiful.
Yeah, that's mine too, of the whole set.
Yeah, this is the watch I want. So
this is actually
for coming out to see you today,
slice.
I think a nice parting gift would be this. I mean, I'm spending, half hour of my time with you, and I think that a fair trade would be giving me a watch like this, and I'd appreciate it. Beautiful. So what is, tell me about this watch and tell me how much you're selling
We're
for.
selling it for $92,000, and it's an actual slice of meteorite. You remember where the meteorite?
It's a Gibeon meteorite.
From Africa, right?
Yeah, from Africa from a few hundred years ago. And they actually take a slab of that meteorite and make it into a dial. So no two meteorite dials will ever have the same texture and look to it. And this one particularly has so much texture and design that it just really pops.
Ridiculous.
So what I love about the Rolex meteorites, it's a much lighter color. When you look at meteorite from other top brands, it's a more grayish, darker color, and Rolex is really white and silvery, and the light just really bounces all over it. And like Jason said, no two watches like this will look the same because the pattern on the meteorite will never be the same again.
And are all meteorites have this band, the rubber band, or some of them have?
No, some of them are on metal bands as well.
Yep. They actually just discontinued the Pepsi with the meteorite dial, and that was one of my favorites.
I did not know that there was a Pepsi.
That thing
Only
was
in white
killer.
gold. Yes.
I never saw that.
Yeah.
This is great. So you box it up for me because I just heard that I'm getting that as a gift.
We'll talk after.
You give them the credit card and it'll
Oh,
boxed up.
that's not as fun. That doesn't sound as fun as giving it to me as a gift. That sounds a little bit more enjoyable. All right, what do we got next?
All right, so the next one here, we have the Rolex Daytona. Of course, it's been nicknamed the Panda dial because of the black subdials and the white dial. And I think it's just so popular because of how clean it looks. You really can't go wrong with white and black. This is the previous generation from the next generation model that they have right now with like that kind of silver rim around the bezel. But to me, I like this one so much better with the thicker subdials.
So tell me, so the difference is the bezel? What else is the difference between this and the
new generation Daytonas, they have like a little ring around the ceramic bezel. So you see that slight little bit of ring on it. They also made the subdials slightly thinner. Wasn't sure why they did that. And then now they just released the Daytona model with no dark subdials on it. So it's just all white. So it seems like through the years they're trying to like make that black subdial smaller and smaller. Now they don't have it.
And this is probably the most waitlisted watch at Rolex that everybody goes for. I think it's the most iconic watch. I love it. It's it's steel, it's sturdy, It's got a ceramic bezel. We're selling it for $33,000 right now, but that's probably whenever a sales associate at Rolex picks up the phone, like 8 out of 10 times he's probably getting requested for this, and only less than 1% of the people that want to actually get it.
And talk to me about ceramic versus non-ceramic and the value. What's worth more and why?
So value-wise, I think it depends really on the model. Ceramic is great, and JC, you could jump in because it's almost impossible to scratch it. So whereas the older stainless steel bezel Daytonas, while they were great and sturdy, and I used to have one, I absolutely love it. If you really use the watch in all different conditions, you're going to see some light hairline scratches on the bezel, where on the ceramic bezel, you're not going to see anything.
Fantastic.
Jason, you want to add anything to
that?
I
was just about to say the same thing. Is if you're the type of person that likes to have everything look new and pristine all the time, this won't ever fade. It won't really have any sort of scratching issues with it, obviously, unless you hit it really hard on something, but it's gonna have a lot more scratch resistance. But if you're like me and you like to look down at your watch and wear it for a few years and kind of see those little love marks that you've added that no one else can add, that's kind of the main difference there for me. But I think value-wise right now, the ceramic bezels tend to sell a little bit more right now, but I really do appreciate both.
Let's talk about one other thing about these watches, these Rolexes. So obviously stainless steel is the most in demand and everybody wants stainless. Talk to me, if this was in a two-tone, what the price difference would be, and why is stainless in such demand versus the two-tone?
I think they're producing fewer quantities of it, and it's just the most iconic Daytona that they make. Also, when it's in precious metals, so if it's a solid gold Daytona, they've raised the retail prices so much because the cost of inputs has gone up so much. So this watch goes for, I think, around $16,000 at Rolex. We're selling it for over 30, given it's impossible to get it at Rolex. But if you want to get this in solid gold, you're going to pay Rolex $50,000, $60,000. So it's a big price difference.
Yeah, I'm saying, but in the secondary market for a two-tone,
it's just less in demand. It's just that the tastes fluctuate, and the stainless steel Daytona has always been the one that's most in demand, and the whole Daytona lineup. But we see taste fluctuate, in different areas. Sometimes blue dials, some years blue dials are for the same watch more expensive than a white dial. Other times the white dial is more expensive. So this Daytona with a white dial trades for, I think, $6,000-7,000 more than the black dial version.
Interesting. And what Paul Newman's just sold, right, at auction?
Did you?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, it was like a big number, like
I remember before.
Couple $1 million.
I remember the original one before went for, I think, $19 million.
Yeah, some millions of dollars. I think I saw it. Yeah.
That's for a stainless steel watch too. That's wild.
All right, what's last?
All right, so we got next one, and the last one here is the Rolex GMT-Master 2 with the Coke bezel. So it has the aluminum bezel insert with the black on top and then the red on the southern hemisphere.
The reason we want to show you Coke, everyone's talking about Pepsi, but this is Atlanta, the headquarters of Coca-Cola. So I learned when I moved here 10 years ago, if you go to a restaurant, you order a Pepsi, they might not bring you anything, including the food after that. So this is definitely a Coke hometown team.
Yeah, beautiful. Like what I like is how the secondary market names all these things:
right.
Hulk and Sprite and Coke and Pepsi and Batman
all got nicknames.
And they have all these nicknames. And I really like that Hulk watch. I think it's they're really nice. That green, it's not for the faint of heart, but it pops. I'll say this, everything that I've seen looks brand new. And when I went back to check out the operation, they have polishing stations and they're doing everything professionally, and it looks. I wouldn't know that this isn't a new watch.
And that's one of the things that we get a lot of questions on is people ask, what's the year on this watch? But for me, it's like, there are certain ways where I can appreciate older generation watches versus the newer generation. So it's not that an older watch is worse than a newer watch, it's just which one are you going to appreciate the most?
And size is important. When I was buying a watch for my son, he's 6 feet tall and he's pretty skinny, and so we couldn't go to a Panerai and get some huge 44 millimeter. It looks ridiculous on his wrist, and so finding that right match. And some of the older ones had a little bit different feel and size to them, so it made it interesting. But really beautiful stuff. I congratulate you on the business, and I can say, guys, go online and check it out because they have so much inventory. Why don't we head over and take a look at the Rolexes?
Yeah, let's check out some sports Rolexes.
Yeah, so we have all these beautiful Rolexes here, and as I was saying before, I love the fact that the aftermarket has named all these watches Sprite and Hulk and Bluesy and Smurf and Root Beer and Coke and Pepsi, and it's kind of fun. And as I said, the people at Rolex don't think it's as fun as I do, but I think we're going to try and name some of these that don't have a name. We might have to give a name that was created here at SwissWatchExpo.
Definitely.
So why don't we go through some of these? What do you think?
Yeah, let's start with the black and green bezel here. So this is the Rolex GMT-Master 2 that they call the Sprite.
Yep.
And then we also have one that's very exclusive here, which is the white gold version of the Sprite.
Beautiful.
With a green dial on there.
Yeah. Yep, Sprite, I like that. I like the Hulk. We got some Hulks here too, right?
We do, yeah. So we actually have the Hulks right over here. We'll get into that right now, actually. So the Hulk is going to be the Rolex Submariner model. So it has the ceramic bezel on it. So it's the green ceramic with a metallic green color on there, which is just really striking.
Yeah, I know not everybody likes green, but I got to tell you, this one pops to me. This really says something.
Yeah.
I just like, when we talked about what, you wear this to work, people are going to say something because it's really, if you can see it, it just really looks fantastic.
We just had a local customer. He sold a big chunk of his business and his logo was green. And he came in and he said, I know this is going to be impossible, but can I get 8 Hulks? And we're like, well, if you give us a week, we'll have 8 Hulks.
SwissWatchExpo.
So he got it.
That's fantastic.
And so he gave it to all of his executive team, and they've been with him for many years, and they had a really large payout during the transaction. But he said when he surprised them at the dinner with the watches, he said they've been talking about this for the last few months, nonstop, more than anything else.
What a statement, a beautiful Rolex. Let's talk about the Batman and the Batgirl.
Yes, so while they have 2 different nicknames to them, they're essentially the same watch, it's just the bracelet difference between them. So we have the Batman, which is the Rolex GMT-Master 2. And this one's going to feature the Oyster bracelet. And then we have the Batgirl, which is the same configuration, just with the Jubilee bracelet.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Oyster bracelet. Myself, I don't love the Jubilee bracelet, but obviously the same watch, but I'm a big fan of the Oyster bracelet for me.
Yeah, I think on a sports watch, I think the Oyster bracelet just is a little bit more consistent.
If I was going to be presidential or something and it was a little bit more formal, I'd say I'd take a Jubilee, but for these sporty watches, I don't like it as much for me personally.
Definitely.
We got the root beer?
Yeah, we got the, let's see here. Yep, we got the modern root beer, which is also the Rolex GMT-Master 2. So you have the black and brown ceramic bezel. Versus the vintage model. And this one's gonna have an aluminum bezel insert, but I love the bronze dial on this one here.
Yeah, I mean, I like the modern one better, but they're both very, very nice.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, more subtle than the Hulk punching you in the face.
Exactly.
It's like Lou Ferrigno's in there giving you a little muscle shot. It's so strong.
All right, so the next one is a very exciting one because this is the one that Rolex just discontinued. So this is the Rolex GMT-Master 2 Pepsi.
Yeah.
So with the blue and red bezel and on a Jubilee bracelet.
So we were talking about how prices jumped in the last few months. They said that they're discontinuing them, and they discontinued them just recently.
Just a month ago, yeah.
A month ago, and prices you said are up
$5,000.
$5,000.
The last 5-6 weeks.
So and it just, the difference between Pepsi and Coke, these things just are the bezels, and they've been named just the color. We've got this one, which doesn't have a name. Right. Would we talk about this one for a second?
Yeah, so this is also a GMT-Master 2. It's steel and yellow gold with just an all black bezel. So very similar to like the all stainless steel model that just has the green GMT hand there, which I do like that little bit of pop of green in there.
So we're gonna name this watch here at SwissWatchExpo today. And so we got viral names and Bluesy and Smurf and Sprite and Coke and Pepsi and Batman and Batgirl. We're gonna call this the Wake Forest because it's black and gold and that's Wake Forest colors. And my son Jack is a freshman at Wake Forest and my daughter Julia will be a freshman at Wake Forest.
Eric, guess what watch your son's gonna be asking for after seeing this video?
Oh, well, it's funny. Uncle Eugene is gonna buy him a watch. And that's very nice.
For graduation.
For graduation, Uncle Eugene just offered to buy my son another watch to increase his collection. So Jack is getting really into collecting watches now. And I said, you better start getting a job because Dad is not buying you 50 watches. But he's a big guitarist. My son plays guitar, sings, as does my daughter. And Jack is really into John Mayer. And John Mayer has some big watch game.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's sending me videos and pictures of John Mayer's watches all the time. And so I think if John, if you watch this, if you want to jam with my son, he's pretty good. So why don't we do a little watch off and
That'd be awesome.
and jam together.
And your son will be wearing the Wake Forest.
Yeah,
Now that we named
gift from Eugene.
Now that we named it. Yeah.
Well, SwissWatchExpo might be sponsoring Eric Rosen, the Rosen Report, and Wake Forest Jack Rosen.
Well, you're sponsoring $1 million of his education. So.
Yeah, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started on the cost of college. But yeah, there's the Wake Forest. Pretty cool watch. All right, we got any others here?
The other one here is just the traditional Rolex GMT-Master 2, just a very classic looks if you're not a fan of like the pops of color. This is just a very traditional GMT-Master 2 look.
Yeah, it goes with a little bit more, but I'm going with the pop of color. I'm going with blue or,
Go
green.
big or go home.
That's what I say.
One thing this year, like I mentioned earlier, gold watches are hot. I think people realize gold prices through the roof.
Yeah.
And gold is all over financial news. So a lot of financial professionals have been looking for gold watches, which they weren't looking for a few years ago. So I don't know if you want to show some of our gold pieces.
So this one's a very crazy piece that we have here. So this was still a Rolex GMT-Master 2 in all 18 karat yellow gold, but you have a combination of diamonds and black sapphires on the bezel.
Whoa. Stunning, not my vibe. I'm not bedazzling anything here, but it's really nice. How much does this watch cost?
This one here is about $78,000.
And that's original from Rolex, so no customization.
I mean, one of the things you want to do when you're looking at a watch is, the amount of play in the band. I mean, this thing ain't moving. This is like brand new. So even though it's not new, when you take care of your watch and you don't wear it a lot, I've seen watches that are 40 years old that have never been worn in the box, with stickers on the back, So this thing is in perfect condition and there's no movement at all in the band, which is nice. Diamonds are not my thing on watches, but it's pretty.
One thing our customers love about us is that, they know we have fair pricing and they know the condition of our watches is always consistently excellent. So when they come to shop with us, they only have to figure out what they want to buy. They don't have to worry about the condition much. They don't have to worry about, is the pricing going to be fair? Because you go online and it can be pricing all over the place. So they're there, they know they could trust us with the condition, the pricing, and they're just literally picking out what they want.
Great.
All right, moving on to the nicknames still. So this is very similar to the Submariner Hulk, but this one has a black dial with a green ceramic bezel, and that one is nicknamed the Starbucks.
I'd not seen a Starbucks before. I'm not generally a fan of the black face, but I like this. I'll give you guys a guess. What is my cumulative lifetime spend at Starbucks?
Oh no.
Oh, let me guess. 50,000.
It's under $100. I've never tried coffee in my life. I've never tasted coffee.
I thought you were going the other way.
Yeah, I knew you were going the other way. I've never bought coffee. So when I go, I buy a bottle of water. I don't drink coffee. So I don't think I've spent $100 in my life at Starbucks, which means I should probably wear this watch, to support Starbucks. Because
how much money you save with
all the money I saved, I could buy a couple of these.
There
you go.
These people buy, $8 coffees 3 times a day. You could buy a nice Rolex pretty quick.
Definitely. All right, so the next one's gonna be the Rolex Submariner, and they call this one the Bluesy because of the blue dial and the blue bezel here with a two-tone look.
Yeah, that's nice.
So it still has that nice metallic blue color, but they also come in more of like a flat matte blue, even on a all yellow gold piece as well.
And how much are these?
So the regular Bluesy here is about 19. It's the newer reference, so it's about 41 millimeter case size. And so this one here is going to be about 34, which is a really great value for an all 18 karat gold watch.
And 19.
And the Bluesy, they've been making them for what, like 30 years now?
Yeah.
And I know you don't have a Smurf here, but what's the difference between the Bluesy and the Smurf?
Very similar. It's just going to be a white gold model with the same actual looking ceramic bezel on there.
Beautiful. I mean, they have so much inventory here. It's a bit overwhelming to look at. Why don't we look at some Daytonas?
Let's do it. So we're gonna move right over here. We've got this one, which is just a really crazy off-catalog watch here with the diamond baguette bezel and lugs. Champagne dial with baguette.
I don't think I can pull that up. I'm not pulling this up.
I don't think you're cool enough.
Yeah, I do not exude cool enough for this.
Until you drop your rap album, that might not be
right.
That does not have the Rosen name on it, sadly.
Drake could pull it off, but I'm not sure you can.
I cannot do that, sadly.
So this is for your son. This is the John Mayer Rolex Daytona.
That your son. It's literally nicknamed the John Mayer.
Yeah.
So the reason why this became so popular and why it was nicknamed John Mayer is he did an article with Hodinkee. They were talking about this watch, and at this point, Rolex was having a hard time trying to sell this model with the green dial. And John Mayer came out and said, why? It's got this beautiful, like, green jelly bean color tone to it, this thing's gonna go up in value. As soon as that article came out, everybody started calling that the John Mayer, and now everybody wants one on their wrist.
Wow, I mean, I really, how much is this one?
That should be like in the 70s.
Yeah, 78,000. Real, again, this, I would never know that this was this
All
was
of
worn.
our watches.
This does not move. I mean, it is unscratched. It is in stunning condition. I mean, now this is another one. Like if you don't want to give me the meteorite and you want to give me this one, that's another option for you.
Just, I mean, I could give you both. Just you gotta give me 2 credit cards, or I don't know what the
Again,
limit
that
is.
sounds a little less appealing than being given as a gift. Is a lot more appealing to me. I'm gonna start collecting watches again. Maybe I shouldn't have come here after all.
I think you
should.
should.
Let's talk about this one.
All right, perfect. So we got this one here, which is a very traditional steel and yellow gold with the black dial. This is probably one of the most popular ones that we sell in the two-tone look, just because of the black dial pairs so nicely with the yellow gold.
And tell me how, so when we talk about watch sizes, you know, millimeters, let's just walk through like Submariners, Daytonas, what the traditional sizes are. And I know over time they've changed a little bit from new to old, but why don't you walk them through?
Yeah, so it's actually very easy with between the GMT-Master 2, Submariners, and Daytona. They're all gonna be 40 millimeter. It wasn't up until 2020 where Rolex decided to make a 41 millimeter version of the Submariner, but still the Daytonas and the GMT-Master 2s are 40 millimeter.
And traditionally, a Submariner was always 40 millimeter.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I've got pretty small wrists, you know.
What's the size of a Deep Sea?
Deep Sea is 44 millimeter.
So that's a bigger one.
Yeah, to pull that off, you got to be a little bigger. So I was at the golf course the other day. My daughter was in a golf tournament, and there was this man who I was like, that guy has to be a pro footballer. It was one of the largest individuals I ever saw. He was like 6'5", 6'6", 300 pounds, and ripped. And I'm like, were you in the NFL or something? He's like, yeah. It was Kyle Long.
Oh,
So he played on the Bears. There's Chris and Kyle Long. The one that played on the Bears, he was an offensive lineman. His dad was Howie Long. Like, that guy could wear a 55 millimeter watch if he wanted to because his wrist was bigger than my thigh.
Yep.
Me, I can't wear a 44 millimeter watch. I can't pull it off, but these big guys can pull it off. I really like this watch. And how big are the Daytonas?
40 millimeters.
40 millimeter. Yeah, so this is something.
They've never made a Daytona any size but the 40 millimeter.
Oh, there has never been any other size. Okay, I don't know why. I thought there was a different bezel or something that made it look bigger.
I think the ceramic makes it look slightly bigger, but overall they're always
40 millimeters.
The case size.
Yeah.
Okay, the case size is always the same. Okay.
Now let's see here. This one's one of my favorite ones. I just love the red accents against the black dial.
Whoa, I've never seen that face.
That's a little heavier because it's white gold.
Yeah.
It's got the racing dial, so you got your Arabic numerals there too, which is just, I mean, it's just such a cool and unique look on a Daytona.
What I do like is, the face, you can put different faces on these watches and they make them look so different, and the different Arabic numerals and the different way they look. I've never seen this face, this red face. I think it's really nice. It's a little hard for me to read it, but I think it looks good.
Yeah.
I would struggle checking the time on that. So
that's the beauty about watch collecting. It's there's so much variety, and there's so many different references that when you're looking at the pre-owned market, the selection's incredible.
Yeah, like this is
Yeah, very classic white dial, gold subdials, two-tone look. I mean, just a very clean looking dress watch.
And so this is $27,000. Yeah, I mean, they're all in fantastic shape.
Yes.
Yeah, so right now we have 1,000 Rolex watches. So we're probably looking at 10% of our Rolex inventory right now.
Amazing.
Eric, thank you for coming out. I know we were hanging out in Florida a month ago, and I said, when you make it to Atlanta next, I'd love to host you. And here you go, and here you are.
Yeah, we're at the yacht show, at the Palm Beach Yacht Show, the boat show, and we're on this beautiful yacht, and we're again surrounding ourselves with beauty and luxury. And so thanks for having me out. I learned a lot today, and I got to see your inventory and a really impressive operation. And I just recommend everybody come check out the website because they have a lot to offer. And so thanks for having me out.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. It's SwissWatchExpo.com. Come check us out, and we'll be able to help you out.
Yeah, and I'm on Substack at the Rosen Report, and I publish on Wednesdays and Sundays. I put out a newsletter, and we talk about a lot of different things. And one of them, we're gonna highlight watches in the next week or two, and we'll put the video in, and we'll educate everybody a little bit on watches. So thanks for watching, and thanks for having me.
Thanks.